Okay, yin time. Let's come to the mat. We'll start on our backs, no props. And you'll keep the soles of the feet on the mat, bring them out wide, let the head come down to the mat. So feet are outer edges of the mat or wider than hip width distance if you're not using a mat. And then from here, bring the arms down by the sides, palms facing up. Close, knees touch. So feet are wide, knees touch in the center of the mat. And you're just trying to make some space in the lower back here with this internal hip rotation. Start to take a deep breath in through the nose. Back out through the nose. 2 more like that. Deep breath in. Slow breath out. Inhale, lift the belly, then the chest. And as long as you can, exhale back out through the nose. Keep going on your own with this breath. Blink open the eyes, reach the arms up. So fingertips toward the sky, and then bring the right arm in front of the left arm. So you're just crossing the arms. Turn the palms to face down toward the ground and slide the fingers underneath you. So it's like you're giving yourself a big hug. Elbows come down toward the navel so that the face has plenty of space, the chest stays open. And it's like you're trying to lightly pull the shoulder blades apart. So this is a really gentle way to start to get into the shoulders. You can keep the eyes closed, stay with your breath. And reach the arms all the way back up, fingertips toward the sky, left arm in front of the right arm. So you're crossing high up on the arms as high as you can. Turn the palms to face down. Slide the fingers underneath the back like you're trying to pull the shoulder blades apart. Elbows come down away from the face like you're trying to point down toward the legs. Close the eyes. Stay here. Stay with your Ujjayi breath in and out through the nose, up and down the back of the throat. Starting to feel things slow down. The mind starts to calm. Finding ease and comfort in this shape. Knowing it doesn't last forever. So just experiencing whatever it has to offer right now. And reach the arms all the way back up. Hands come down by the sides. Heel toe the feet closer together so they're more like hip width distance, and extend the legs out in front of you. So you're coming down to just lying down like Shavasana. Feet are a little bit wider than hip width distance. Don't go too wide. You can always adjust later. Reach the arms overhead, find a stretch. So you're reaching out through the arms, reaching out through the legs. Clasp opposite elbows overhead. It doesn't matter which forearm's on top, but as you clasp up opposite elbows, let the arms rest overhead on the ground. Then you'll take this right foot, hook it over on top of the left foot. So the legs are straight, but the feet are hooked down by the ankles. And then lift the upper body up. So head, upper body, shoulders, move the upper body over to the left a little bit. So not as far as you can go, but enough so that you can still get the head, both shoulder blades down on the mat, arms back down on the mat. Feet are hooked so you can let the legs relax. You'll still feel a nice opening on the right side of the body as well as the left side of the body, getting into the shoulders. Even though some of us feel it right away with the arms overhead, it is a nice shoulder opening, but it is definitely something that builds over time. If you need a break, take a break. Don't feel like you have to keep the arms there. And another thing you can do to make this gentler is instead of clasping opposite elbows, maybe you clasp opposite forearms, maybe even wrists, if the shoulders need more space. Making sure you can easily breathe in and out through the nose, making that ocean wave-like sound from the back of the throat. You'll start to lift the upper body up, bring it back to center, unhook the feet, stretch the arms overhead, find that big long stretch out through the arms and the legs. Clasp opposite elbows the other way. So bring the opposite forearm on top. Stack the left foot on top of the right, crossing at the ankles, legs straight. Lift the upper body up and over to the right. You don't need to go too far. Make sure both hips, shoulder blades, heads on the mat. Maybe you even loosen up the grip between the forearms. And you're in banana on the other side. And start to lift the upper body, bring it back to center, unhook the feet, reach the arms overhead, reach out through the legs, and you'll slowly start to walk the feet in, bending the knees. Let's cross the right leg high up over the left leg. So not thread the needle, not ankle to thigh, cross that leg all the way over, high up on the inner thighs, and then start to bring both knees in toward the chest. You could leave that left foot down. If there's room, bring the knees in toward the chest. Some of you can reach onto that bottom knee, the left knee, or you could grab onto the back of the left thigh. We're not here for long. It's just a little bit of a hip opening on your back, getting a little deeper into crossing the legs, because we'll start to play with that a little bit more as we move through our yin practice. Head should be down on the mat, shoulders down on the mat. If they're lifted, then that means the legs have come in too far in toward the body. So then you'll just bring that left foot down, keep the legs crossed. And set that left foot back down to the mat. Right foot comes back down to the mat. Same thing other side. So cross the left leg high up over the right leg. We're all going to be different with the way the legs cross. So just work with whatever's happening. And it could be different side to side. Maybe you keep the right foot on the mat and you just stay here. This is a hip opening. If you want to deepen it, start to bring the knees in toward the chest. Either grab onto that bottom knee if it's comfortable, or you could bring the hands behind the back of the right thigh. Not here for long, just about a minute. So make sure you hang on somewhere where you get enough relaxation and you're not straining to keep the hands there. And start to set the feet back down to the mat. Once you do that, roll over to your right side. Use the left hand to bring yourself up to seated. And you'll want a block or two probably for this next pose. So have those nearby. Come forward to hands and knees. So bring the feet to one side. Come forward to hands and knees. I'm going to move the block over to the side so you can see. Then once you get to hands and knees, bring the knees all the way together, tops of the feet to the mat, but the feet go a little bit wider, a little wider than the hips. And we're coming into saddle pose, Virasana. So you can take a block or two. If you're not sure, take 2 blocks on the lowest height and put those between the ankles, one stacked on top of the other. And then see if you can get the hips on those blocks. Once they touch, then you can bring the hands to the thighs, sit up tall. And if you feel like you have a lot more room, then you can start playing with the height of the hips. So if this is too high, maybe you come forward to hands and knees and you take this bottom block to the medium height. See how that feels. The hips need to be grounded on whatever's underneath you. Maybe this is good and you stay here. Or maybe you could go lower, come forward, shift the block to the lowest height. Make sure you're not sitting on the feet. So heels are outside the hips. You're sitting up tall. If you feel like you could go even lower, remove the block completely. See if you can get the hips evenly on the mat. They're not lifted at all. Stay there. That's your saddle pose. So we'll all be in a different place with this. And if it becomes too much for the knees or any of the lower body joints, then start to lift the hips back up. So you need to find some comfort, especially right now, right out of the gate. So close the eyes. Sit up tall once you're there. Reach the left arm all the way up. So palm faces behind you. Bend that left elbow and you'll just reach for that left elbow, keeping the chest lifted, starting to get into that left shoulder. Eyes can be closed, but if they were open, your gaze would be going straight forward. So that means the tip of the nose points forward and down a little bit. That helps keep the upper body lifted. Sometimes it wants to collapse. The upper back wants to round. We want to stay in that shoulder. Reach the arms all the way back up. Turn that right hand, the palm to face behind you. Bring that right hand to the upper back somewhere, wherever it easily touches. Maybe it's the neck, that's fine. Grab the left elbow, grab the right elbow. Keep everything lifted. So maybe getting into that right shoulder, maybe even the right elbow. Eyes can be closed, chest stays lifted. Trying to keep the chin away from the chest, but it's not lifted either. Then reach the arms all the way back up. Bring the hands to rest on the thighs. Let the shoulders pull away from the ears. Feeling that release that's starting to happen, the blood come back into the arms after having them up overhead for so long. And you'll start to shift forward to hands and knees again. Take the block or whatever you have underneath you. If you do, set it off to the side. Walk the hands underneath the shoulders. Separate the knees to hip width distance. You can tap the tops of the feet on the mat just to get the circulation back. And we'll start to make our way to seated. So you'll bring the feet over to one side, come to seated with the legs out in front of you. And this will feel really nice. We've had the legs bent for quite a while. You could sit up on a block, a bolster, a blanket if you want to lift the hips up and keep that lower back straight. If you feel fine on the mat, stay where you are. We're just coming into caterpillar, so a forward fold. So you can start to round the back here if that's okay in your spine. If you have any lower back stuff happening, a strap is a nice way to do a forward fold. You can just loop the soles of the feet, keep the back long, and start to get that opening on the back sides of the legs. If back is fine with you folding forward, fold forward, let the head and the neck go. Blocks can be a really nice prop for your forward folds. You can use them to place the hands. You can build up higher to place the forearms like armrests. Or you could build something between the legs. So you could put a block or two between the legs if the head's low enough and let the head rest on the blocks. And if that happens, turning the palms to face up is a nice way to be in the shape without reaching for anything. it can make it more relaxing. It's time to move on. We'll start to bring ourselves back out of that forward fold. If you have any props in the way, just set them off to the side. Bring the feet over to one side. You're coming back to hands and knees. As you come back to hands and knees, let's bring the we'll get into this a little differently. So walk the hands forward toward the shoulders. Bring the right knee forward almost as far as you can, but both knees are down on the mat. Right foot goes over to the left. And now bring that right leg back so it's crossing over the left leg. So we kind of did this on our back. Feet are wide-ish, as wide as they'll go. Start to walk the hands back, and you can let the hips just sink down toward the mat. If they don't touch, grab a block, blanket, bolster. You're coming to seated with the legs crossed. So it's just a different way to get into that pose. If that's not working, bring the legs out in front of you when you're seated. Right foot comes in, right foot steps over the left leg. Bring that left foot out to the right, and then maybe lean over to the left side, bring that foot in. You could also just do it with one leg out in front of you. So don't feel like you have to cross both legs. I might have had my rights and lefts confused in that explanation. Right knee's on top of the left. And if you're already set up on the other side, just switch it when you go the other way. So legs are crossed. Feet are wide, so you don't have, or they're in toward the body. See where you find it to be more relaxing. One is more intense than the other, and the feet are a nice way to find some ease in the pose. You'll want a strap, probably. Have that nearby. Grab the strap in the left hand, reach that left arm all the way up. And once you get the left arm up, hang the strap down between the back. So we've been working to get to this very pose here. Right arm reaches out to the side, thumb side down. Bring the right arm behind the back. You can start to work the hand up the back, but don't go as far as you can go. Just go part of the way. Keep it easy because you'll be here for a while. Grab onto the strap. And if you feel at any point the hands are too close together and it's just too much for the shoulders, slide the bottom hand down the strap as much as you need to, or just forget about the arms and let them go. So keep the chest lifted. Feel how this feels in the upper body. You're opening up the shoulders in two different directions. You're also getting into the hips, knees, ankles with the lower body. Come to your breath. If you'd like, you could start to fold forward. It does kick up the intensity in the pose. So maybe you just start to gently lean forward a little bit, whatever that means for you, and stay there. Once you get the momentum going in that direction, as your body begins to open, it'll just naturally fall there. So you don't have to really put much effort or force into folding forward if that's an option you're taking. Keep the eyes closed, just focus on your breath, let go of everything except for the strap, and see where you end up at the end of this naturally. If you're folding forward, slowly come back up to seated. If you have the strap, gently release it or release the arms down by the sides. Bring the hands back behind you. Extend the bottom leg first if it's bent, then the top leg. And as you sit back, recline, bring the feet wide to the outer edges of the mat, and you'll take windshield wipers going side to side, which should feel like a release. That's the big shape for the legs. It's tight, or can be anyway. So this can be just the right amount of a counter before you come into the other side. So you can come into the other side seated, legs out in front of you. You'll bring the left foot in, step it over, and then bend the bottom leg. If you want to do what we did before, come to seated with the legs out in front of you, feet go to one side. You come forward to hands and knees. And this is just an interesting transition. You feel a little bit of an opening in the glutes too. So left knee shifts forward, hands go forward. That left foot has to go over to the right. And then you start to bring that left leg back, crossing the thighs, separating the feet wide enough so that you come back. It's almost like the upper body's in child's pose. And then you slowly start to set the hips down between the feet. You come to seated. Make sure you're not seated on the feet at all, so hips are completely on the mat. And then once you get here, knees are stacked. If it's too much, that bottom leg can always extend forward and it's just half the shape and you're still in it. Half shoelace or full shoelace. All these poses have fun names in yin that are a little bit different. than some of our other yoga styles. So you'll grab your strap, especially if you liked it on the first side, grab it in the right hand, lift it up overhead. Start to hang the strap between the shoulder blades. See where that right shoulder wants to go, where that right elbow wants to go. Then the left arm comes out to the side, thumb side down. Bring the hand behind the back, grab onto the strap and start to work the hand up the strap to a place that feels good in your left shoulder. So right shoulder's going in one direction, left shoulder's going in the other. You want both to feel comfortable. Use that strap to find a gentle place to be. You know you're here for a while, so you don't want to force the shoulders into something for too long. And then we stay upright to start. Let's just get the body used to this. Everything's going in a lot of different directions. Come to your breath. You can keep the eyes closed. Chin away from the chest, chest lifted. If you like, you could start to lean forward with the upper body. Just go part of the way. See how that changes things, maybe in the hips as you put more weight on the hips, maybe in the upper body. You'll start to bring the chest back up if you're leaning forward. Let go of the arms, set the strap off to the side if you're using one. Bring the hands back behind you, lean back. Bottom leg goes out first. If it's not already there, then the top leg. Windshield wipers, feet wide, knees side to side. Not an easy pose to be in, but one that's so beneficial when it's feeling good. And from here, make sure the hips are more toward the center of the mat. So I have scooted way far back on my mat, soles of the feet on the mat. Make sure the blocks are nearby, the hips. Come on down onto your back again, walking the feet in toward the body, knees point straight up, and they're about hip width distance apart. You don't want them wider. So we're coming into a supported bridge. If you're comfortable going into your supported bridge high, just start a little lower. So if you have a block, take the block on the medium height, press into the feet, lift the hips up, slide the block underneath the hips. It's our first back bend, so we don't want to go too high too soon. And if you feel like that's too high, come to a lower height. You can always build up over time. You can take the lowest height with the block if you'd like. So we'll be in this back bend, a variety of variations of supported bridge pose for the next several minutes. And we'll just kind of work our way through different stages of it. So see if you can stay with me. Feel the elevation of the hips as it is now. And listening to your body when it's time to make choices. If you'd like to go up higher, you'll need to walk the feet in, coming up onto the balls of the feet, lifting the heels up high, lift the hips up. You can either turn the block to the tallest height and set the hips back down on the block, or if you have two blocks, you could bring that bottom block on the lowest height and the next block also on the lowest height, stacking the blocks. This is a variation I've been enjoying lately, but you do need two blocks to do it. Soles of the feet come back down to the mat. You're back in your supported bridge pose at whatever height you want with the blocks. Maybe you didn't adjust the height and you were just fine where you were before. That's definitely okay. Eyes can be closed, or maybe you look up, but we never move the head side to side here. Even though you can do it, it's not great for the neck. And we all want to keep our neck healthy as long as possible. So feeling the lifting and spreading of the chest, shoulders kind of come underneath you a little bit and they're open. So they might naturally go a little deeper than usual. We did a lot of shoulder opening today. So from here, if you'd like to go a little deeper, you could start to extend the legs out in front of you, walking the heels forward, but it definitely intensifies the pose. So check it out, see how it is. If it's something you want to be in, stay there. If not, skip it. Or another option is taking the elevation down a little bit underneath the hips and seeing if that's better to keep the legs out. Definitely don't want to feel anything in the lower back. There should be a bit of an arch there, some length with the tailbone pointing forward. And if you have the legs out in front of you, start to walk them back in, coming back to your supported bridge pose. So that means soles of the feet are on the mat, legs are bent. You can stay right here, or you can play with lifting one leg up, making sure that your hips feel stable on the block or whatever you have underneath them. If that's the case, lift the other leg up. If not, adjust the block. So now we're coming into an inversion. Legs are relaxed, but the feet and legs are over the hips. So you're just reversing the blood flow in the legs. Chest is still lifted and there's still an arch of the lower back. So try not to let that all collapse. You'll start to bend the knees, slowly bring the feet back down to the mat, coming back into your supported bridge pose. Maybe feeling the blood come back into the feet. That was a longer hold with the feet up, a longer inversion. We'll start to work our way back down, but we won't go too fast too soon. So wherever you are, if there's a lower version, take that, lift the hips up, bring the block to a lower height. If you have two blocks stacked, I'm just removing one and coming down onto the lower one. So most of us are probably at one block at the lowest height. If you're not, take a few breaths where you are and then join us here with the block underneath you on the lowest height. Take your time. So feeling the difference in wherever the hips were before and where they are now, it might not feel like you're up that high, but for some reason, the transition to go all the way back down on the mat is usually a bigger one. So let's press into the feet, lift the hips up, slide anything you have out from underneath you, set the hips back down on the mat, and now you feel the difference in how high you were. Feeling the spine start to settle. And let's take a counter. That was a long back bend. So we'll spend some time in a counter pose. You'll bring the knees just over the hips, so not in toward the chest. Hook one foot on top of the other, grab onto each knee with the hands and start to pull the knees apart as wide as you can, which won't be very wide because the feet are hooked. Hips are down on the mat. You'll feel the lower back start to spread. You can just stay like this. Some people like to rock side to side. I feel like stillness feels really good right now. I'll leave it to you to decide what you need. Hook the feet the other way. So bring the other foot on top. Stay here, same thing. Just keeping it even. Set the feet back down to the mat. Soles of the feet are on the mat. Cross the right leg high up over the left leg. So back into the same shape we've been doing with the legs. And if it's too much, you can skip it and just keep both feet on the mat, feet and knees together. We're taking a reclined spinal twist. So we'll all bring the hips over to the right. Knees come over to the left. Right arm can reach back behind you. And maybe the gaze starts to go over the right arm. So listen to that lower back. If it doesn't like the legs crossed, uncross them, keeping the knees stacked. You could even take a block and put it between the knees or a bolster, blanket, whatever you have, if you're not crossing the legs. You'll start to bring the head back to center, uncross the legs if they're crossed, bring the feet back to the mat, finding center on your back, and we'll counterpose that. Bring the knees in toward the chest, knees and feet stay together, and you'll circle the knees around, going in the same direction, moving the hips underneath you on the mat. And start to take your circles in the other direction. And set the feet back down to the mat. If you like the cross leg version, you'll cross the left leg high up over the right leg. Press into that right foot, scoot the hips over to the left, knees come over to the right, reach that left arm back behind you, let the gaze fall over the left arm, and you're back in your cross-legged supine twist. Unless you want to uncross the legs, keep the knees stacked, or even something between the knees. Start to bring the head back to center, uncross the legs, bring the feet back to center on your mat. Let's counter that. So bring the knees in toward the chest, hang on to the knees, keeping the knees and feet together. Start to take the circles in the opposite direction that you want to go in first. So trying to change things up with the body, trying to get out of those patterns and grooves that are so deep because we do so many things the same way over and over again. And go the other way. Set the feet back down onto the mat. You'll come into Shavasana. If you have 2 blocks, this is a nice Shavasana to take. You can take the blocks lowest height, the wide way, separate the feet wider than hip width distance, and the blocks go underneath the thighs. If you want something underneath the head, you can take a pillow, a blanket, whatever you have. Everything else, make sure you're not touching anything. So I know there's a lot of props that end up all around us, especially in a practice like this. There's a strap nearby that you're touching. See if you can shoo that off to the side. Makes a difference when you reset the nervous system. You don't want to be touching anything other than what you're actually using. So palms start to face up. Close the eyes. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale out of the mouth. Let the body go back to breathing on its own. Shavasana. Final relaxation pose. You'll start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Walk the feet in, bending the knees. See if you can move the blocks out of the way with the feet and the hands. Set those off to the side so they're out of the way. Reach the arms overhead, finding a stretch. And roll over to your right side. So cradle the head and the arm. Keep the eyes closed. Taking some time here in the transition out of your practice and back into your day, especially after being on your back for so long. It's nice to be on your side for a moment before you bring yourself all the way back up. So lie here for 3 more solid breaths. Use the left hand to press yourself up to seated. You're welcome to sit up on something if you'd like, or down on the mat, whatever your meditation seat looks like. Sitting up tall Keep the chest lifted. Bring the hands together in front of you. Begin to bow the head so that you can honor and acknowledge your heart and your spirit, bringing everything all together with the body. And same thing for everyone else. When we come from this place and we can acknowledge everyone else from this place right here, we feel more connected. Bring the head back up, blink open the eyes. Namaste. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm really getting a lot out of my yin practice, and probably what I'm practicing most these days. And that's what you do with your yoga practice, is try to figure out ways that it can help whatever else you have going on in your life. Flow is great if you need more activity, you need to bring more heat into the body, all of that. But yin's also a great balance for that, or any other activity that you're doing that brings heat into the body. High intensity training, sports, running, whatever it is that gets your heart rate up. All right. See you guys next time. Thanks so much for joining.